This is the plaintiff, Rahima. She says she's a traveling nurse who goes from city to city during COVID, and the heartless defendant is keeping her security deposit, claiming she didn't give her 30 days notice before she had to up and go to a different city. This is outrageous behavior. She's here fighting for a refund of the $300 she's owed. This is the defendant, Valerie. She says the woman gave her only 1 day's notice when she's supposed to give her 30, so she forfeits her security, plain and simple. She's accused of having no heart. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $828.23 for unpaid rent and utilities.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket. The plaintiff is a traveling nurse, and she says the defendant is trying to steal money from her. Now, the defendant says she did nothing of the sort. The plaintiff's money was forfeited, and she's very right to keep it. It's the case of you got no heart.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Ms. Rahima, you are suing to get your security deposit back, and Ms. Valerie believes that it belongs to her and then some, based on how you left. Can you talk to me? Tell me why you were moving in there to begin with.
So I traveled to Bemidji for a nursing contract beginning of April 20th, and I stayed with a couple of friends up until May 25th, but their lease ended, so I needed to find a different place because my contract wasn't over at the time. So I was finding a place on Facebook, and I saw her advertisement. So I sent her a message asking if I could see the place, and we were able to figure out a good time that very evening. So I went and saw the place, but I told her I needed to think about it just for the evening, and then I texted her in the morning, which would be May 26th. Then I told her I'm okay with moving in, so what would be the next steps? And she told me I needed to pay the rent of $400 and a $300 deposit, and that she returns that when a person moves out. So that was initially the agreement. Then I asked her about a receipt or how she wrote leases. She said since it's short term, she doesn't do any leases. She'll just write me a receipt. And she said she would take cash or a check as per her messages. But I told her that I wanted some form of proof that I had paid her. So she said she was okay using Venmo, and that's what we used for payment.
Okay. So you move in on May 26th, and then
Correct.
You tell her that you're leaving when?
I told her that my contract goes up until July 20th. However, they don't always last that long. They can be canceled. So I could be there for 2 months, but I could also be there for a month or less. It just depends. And that was a verbal conversation that we had. And she said, usually Bemidji doesn't cancel. They usually extend. And I told her I'm not sure because I've been canceled before, so I like to take precautions. With COVID getting worse, some people have been canceling nurses or moving them to ICUs and all that. And she said that's fine. So that's where we left it. And like I said,
and you didn't get that in writing that you could leave at a moment's notice, because that's not usual. That's not what the law says. So it's unusual for someone to give you that out. And what was the problem? Did your contract got canceled?
Yes, my contract got canceled. My agent sent me an email, and then he told me he was going to call me that Monday. So I sent Valerie a message explaining to her what had happened, that my contract got canceled. So if she was okay with it, to just Venmo me back the deposit, but I would clean the house and everything. And she told me where to leave the key. So when we had this conversation via message, there was anywhere that she had told me that she wouldn't give me my deposit back. Everything just went smooth up until a couple of days later when she started saying that I wouldn't get the deposit back. And then that's where everything got worse from there.
So talk to me, Ms. Valerie. What's your position?
Okay. Well, Rahima did contact me. She was looking for a place to rent for 2 months because she is a traveling nurse and she was under contract at Sanford Health here in Bemidji until July 20th. So she said she would be moving out.
Did
July
you ever
20th.
tell her that if she got canceled, she could just leave at a moment's notice?
No, I never did. In fact, when she mentioned that she might get canceled, I said, well, that's really strange because I've rented to traveling nurses and traveling x-ray technicians in the past, and Sanford has never canceled their contract early. In fact, what Sanford usually does is extend their contract. So most traveling professionals that I have rented to, their contract has been extended, and I've never had one that's ever been canceled. So when Rahima moved in, I said, I can type up a 2-month contract. She said, no, I don't want a contract. And I said, well, I'm going to take your name, correct spelling. I'm going to take your phone number. I'm going to take your driver's license number. I wrote all that down. I also wrote down the day that she moved in. I had my witness or one of my other tenants there who was witnessing our conversation. And so on the 26th, she moved into Bemidji, into the number 1 room upstairs. She entered into a 2-month verbal agreement.
So she enters into the 2 months, but at what point does she tell you that she's going to leave?
She told me on June 21st that she would be moving out on the 22nd because her contract at Sanford Health was canceled.
And did you ever get to the bottom of whether that was truthful, that her contract got canceled?
I did. I had emailed the human resource manager at Sanford here in Bemidji, and she said that Rahima had been under contract until July 20th. However, her contract was extended until sometime in September, but that she had decided to leave her contract early and left her contract in Bemidji on September 3rd. And I have an email documenting that.
So did you keep working at that hospital, Ms. Rahima?
No, I didn't.
Did you work?
June 21st.
Did you work at that hospital in July and August?
No, I didn't.
She has an email from Human Resources saying you left on September 3rd. Do you get to coast on the idea of a 30-day notice? That's what matters. Because when you don't have a written lease, you are in what we call a month-to-month tenancy. And your month-to-month tenancy requires 30 days notice before you can leave. So you didn't provide the 30-day notice, so you owe July. Because you're telling me, well, I had an exemption, but you have to prove that. And I asked her, and she's denying it. So now it's your word against hers. You don't have, if you want an exemption, you better put an exemption to the law in writing, because you're going to have a really hard time. So she says that, so you didn't pay July, and then we have the utilities. What's this about dividing with 4 and multiplying by 2 and all these texts that I see from you, Ms. Valerie, regarding her and a guest? What's that about?
Yeah, there's, when she moved in, she asked me if someone could help her move in. I said yes. And then she asked if her boyfriend could also spend a night there, once in a while. I said, that's fine. But I said, if the boyfriend is living there, then the rent goes up by $200 a month. So instead of $400 a month, it would be $200 a month. And then I said, in addition to that, I said, we split the utilities of the house between all the tenants that are there. And at that time, there was 3. It would have been Rahima, Jennifer, and Greg were in the house. And so when I get the utility bills, I split it by 3. However, the month of June, her boyfriend was also living there. So I told her, if her boyfriend is going to be living there, he's also going to have to pay his share of the utilities. So then it would be split by 4 individuals.
Okay, but who told you? You don't live there. How do you know the boyfriend was living there?
My tenant who lives there, my witness today, is the one who informed me. Actually,
let me hear from your
both
witness.
of my tenants informed me.
And by the way, do you have in writing that the rent is $600? Because I see your text only after the fact, once she was leaving, where you say, it's an extra $200 for the boyfriend. Do you have that in writing, that if you have somebody stay over what I deem to be too much, I will charge you 50% more? Just like I asked her whether her exemption was in writing, do you have what you're arguing now in writing?
Yes, I do.
Where?
I have in writing when she moved in, the day she moved in, I wrote up everything that we talked about.
And by the way, my understanding, Ms. Rahima, is that you were only there 3 days a week anyway, because you were going back to your hometown. So how much could he have stayed? Let me hear from your witness. Go ahead, Ms. Valerie. Let me hear from your witness. Hi. What's your name?
Greg.
Okay, Greg, please raise your right hand. Can we swear him in, please, Douglas?
Absolutely, Your Honor. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Your Honor.
Okay, what are you here to testify to, Greg?
Just that her boyfriend was there every time she was there, and when she wasn't there, when he would bring her to work, He would come back to the house and he would be there the whole time.
He would be there without her?
Yes.
Is it accurate that she would go back home for 4 days a week?
I thought it was 3 days a week, but yeah, they would both be gone about 3 days a week.
All right. And then the other days he was there all the time?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and switch again. Ms. Valerie, one of the things you're suing for is she has a claim against you for the $300 for the security deposit. You have a claim against her for $828.23. So you didn't give her credit for the security deposit, which you have to because you're also suing for July rent. So you didn't include it in the math. I see the utility bills. You don't deny that you owe the utility bills for June, right, Ms. Rahima?
No. No, I don't.
Right. And then you want her to pay the utility bills for July because she was supposed to be there and paying rent that month. And I get what you're saying, but by the same token, utilities are based on usage and she's not there in July using them. So I'm not going to order her to do that. I'm also, I don't see any proof whatsoever that beforehand the two of you discussed that rent would increase by 50% if she had a guest there 2 months. This is why you guys should put things in writing anyway. Because even though it's a month to month and it's short term, y'all have like a bunch of conditions. Oh, I had an exemption of the law. And you can't have an overnight guest more than 3.2, what. I mean, if you guys are going to have conditions, put it in writing, 1 page. But you don't, and then you have a hard time proving it. I am not going to order her to pay an additional $200 for her guest. I am going to order her to pay the $400 for July rent because she is not able to prove that somehow the law doesn't apply to her. I am going to order her to pay. This is clever. You're dividing it by 4 because you insist that you're allowed to. But again, I see no proof of that. I'm dividing the utilities by 3, which is what the agreement was. And that makes it $83.79 for a total of $483.79, from which we subtract the $300 that is already in your possession, which leaves on your lawsuits against each other a net judgment in favor of the defendant in the amount of $183. That is my judgment. Good luck, folks.
So this case all started with the plaintiff suing for $300. She ends up having to pay $183 to the defendant. Actually, you're the loser, Ms. Rahima. What do you think?
I just didn't feel like it was fair, like a fair discussion of the evidence.
Well, that's the way the judges decided. She listened and looked at all the evidence, what there was to look at, and she found against you, really. Ms. Valerie, you were trying to get $800 from her. You didn't get it. You're getting $183 now. How do you feel about that?
That's fine. I mean, she refused to sign anything. So there was a reason she refused to sign, and there was a reason she lied about what was going on. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up, ma'am. That's the way the case ends. Thank you very much.
In a case like this where we're right now still in the midst of a worldwide viral pandemic, it's hard not to feel sympathy and admiration for a nurse who's there on the front lines and putting her own health
Absolutely.
at risk and doing the job. So God bless her for that. But as a judge,
but with all due respect, I think she was pulling the nurse card because because I think maybe she moved in with the boyfriend or whatever it was because the defendant did have some really strong evidence in that email from HR saying, what are you talking about? She's
still working.
She's still working there until September 3rd,
Right, and in any event, as a judge, you can't let sympathy or admiration for anybody cloud your judgment, and you have to look at it as a straightforward contracts matter, and that's really what this is.
Yeah, well, or lack of contracts matter.
Lack of contract. Well, lack of contract, which defaults to that 30-day rule.
Correct.
You have to give 30 days notice to your landlord. If you don't, you can't say like this plaintiff did on the 20th of June or July.
Yeah, I'm out.
One day. I'm out tomorrow, and think that you're going to get your security back or anything back.
Right. I mean, if she had walked away from the security, she wouldn't be owing $183.
No, it would have been smarter to not file a lawsuit here.
Of course, it's very foolhardy to say, I get to tell you, I'm leaving tomorrow. Oh, by the way, give me back my security. Right. I mean, that's kind of nutty.
Mark wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, if I'm parked on a public street and my neighbor's tree branches fall on my car, who do I sue? Here's the problem, Mark. If your neighbor had no reason to know that the tree had any damage to it, you might be stuck. That doesn't sound fair, but that's the law. Somebody has a duty to cut the branches to keep things safe when they know there's a problem. But if there's not a problem and they didn't know it and the branch falls, say, because of a gust of wind that's really extraordinary, you're out of luck.